Hey guys, what's up? This is Insanity. Got a gameplay of Black Ops Cold War on PC. This is a really old gameplay that I got pre-Dark Ether on a Swiss sniper rifle, so I'm using Diamond Camo on it for this match. The final score is 20-3, which is good enough for me since Armada is a map I don't normally do well on, and at least makes for good commentary fodder since the gameplay isn't too impressive score-wise. Anyway, now that some time has settled since I first watched it, I can go ahead to do my little review of Spider-Man No Way Home. Naturally, there's going to be spoilers, but the internet has pretty much been no man's land when it came to spoilers for his movie pre-release, and it's been some time since the movie released already, so I don't think it'll matter too much to give a disclaimer on spoilers now. I can't remember the reason I ended up not recording a commentary review for Spider-Man Far From Home, since I've done one for Spider-Man Homecoming, but I guess I can do that another time since, again, the focus here is on No Way Home. The short of this is that it's a good movie, but the appreciation of the movie largely comes down to where the fan service in the movie outweighs some of the problematic plot and writing decisions that bring together a movie that's partly a reunion special and partly a movie that furthers the story of Tom Holland's Spider-Man to become a true Spider-Man. And you don't even need to watch the movie to get a sense of that, since the very first teaser trailer for No Way Home already makes it clear that the way this film happens essentially requires some plot-induced stupidity on both Peter's and Strange's part. Even in the movie beyond that, there's some questionable decision-making on Peter's behalf alone, which would set off a chain of events that causes him to literally and figuratively lose everything at the end. And most of the decision-making really makes it seem as if you can't really have anyone to blame but Peter for everything happening the way it does in the movie. But on the other hand, the fan service is great and actually helps complement the story of Tom Holland's Peter by showing him the weight of being Spider-Man. The film's marketing revolved around the return of villains from previous Spider-Man movies. I'd say this is probably to the film's benefit where MCU Peter is concerned. Tom Holland's Spider-Man dealt with Michael Keaton's Vulture in Homecoming and Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio in Far From Home. They were both great villains, but they were not the fighter type. However, at least where the MCU Spider-Man movies are concerned, the villains followed a good sense of escalation between movies. The Vulture is a long-time crook who was portrayed as an underdog in a world of super people, and MCU Peter's interactions with him largely involved being a giant thorn in his side, but a chance encounter with the Vulture behind a mask helps shape Peter's later interactions with him, as he learns to empathize with and even saves the Vulture, while still understanding that the Vulture is still doing villainous things, but on a much smaller scale. Mysterio enters Peter's life much sooner than the Vulture did, and Peter builds the rapport with Mysterio before being betrayed and then messed with both mentally and emotionally. And even though Mysterio himself is just a human who really isn't a threat to Peter physically, he still managed to be a big threat on a much larger scale than the Vulture was. Both aspects of Peter's previous villains are put to good use with the returning villains in No Way Home. They firstly provide physical challenges, since the villains can actually fight. They provide mental challenges, as Peter's dilemma in No Way Home is about whether they ought to be sent back to die in their home universe, despite being villains. And they provide emotional challenges, as Peter's commitment to try and fix the villains would set him off on a path to eventually losing everything. Naturally, with this being a multiverse plot, it probably came as no surprise that both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield would also return. Never mind the numerous leaks prior to the release of the film, which would only leave the most stubborn deniers or the few uninformed completely surprised upon seeing them in the film. The return of the previous Peter Parker / Spider-Man actors did more than just be fan service. They immediately connect with not only each other, but with Tom's Peter in terms of the struggles of being Spider-Man, and they come into the plot at Peter's time of need when he is at his lowest point and worn down, providing both physical and emotional support. Plus, they get some sense of closure, since both Tobey and Andrew's Spider-Man films did not end on a high note, and their Peter Parkers are still haunted by some of their failures in their own films, so they opt to work on making up for that in this film. Nostalgia bait can be a powerful tool, but it can also be easily misused. The past Spider-Man villains and Spider-Mans coming into this film, no doubt, was a major selling point, but most of the legacy characters are given new context when placed into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and their involvement complements Tom's Peter really well. Not all of the legacy characters are weighted equally in terms of screen time and plot importance, but I thought they were all used well enough. That's why No Way Home as a film can only really work if you're willing to let the fanservice take your mind off of the writing issues. This is still meant to be a film about Tom's Peter and Spider-Man first, and the legacy characters are written to support that. But for those who don't care for the MCU version of Spider-Man, it's likely that the fanservice is the only thing that makes No Way Home worth watching for them. For me personally, I enjoyed the fanservice, and I also enjoyed seeing Tom's Peter truly grow in spite of the toys that were thrown into the playbox. I enjoyed both Homecoming and Far From Home, but Tom Holland gives his best performance in No Way Home, which offers more dramatic material and asks a lot more from him, and that makes No Way Home a stronger movie than the previous two MCU Spider-Man movies. For many, No Way Home will easily be their favorite MCU Spider-Man movie, though opinions on the best Spider-Man movie overall will likely still be up for debate. The ending of No Way Home sets up the classic Spider-Man status quo, and while it's a great ending, I do hope that the next Spider-Man movie, which is most certainly going to be a thing, since No Way Home made so much money even in a pandemic, I hope it does not undermine the intention behind No Way Home ending the way it did. I was spoiled before I even went into seeing the film, and I was still happy seeing how the film turned out. Overall, my final score is a 9 out of 10 for the fanservice, Tom giving a great performance, and the ending, and probably an 8 out of 10 if I had to actually think about and take into consideration the writing and plot logic that put this film together, which is kind of sloppy. So that's a gameplay and commentary. Hope you enjoyed it, and Insanity is out.